It's Monday. It's Veteran Day. Shout out to all the veterans out there that made the time sacrifice and did the dirty duty that we all needed to enjoy the freedoms that we have. Happy Veterans Day out there to all the veterans. Welcome to the Monday morning member spotlight. Oh, I got a good one for you today, bro. I dove into David Haberfeld's past. Joe, there's so much. Like at first you thought, oh, he owns a lot of properties, he does a lot of rents. Much more. There's some really good nuggets of information today that I found that we're going to talk about because there was a massive arc with David. There was an up, there was a down, there was an up, and now he's on a maintaining upswing. We want to know how. We want to know how he dealt with that. We want to know and take that value and hopefully he give us some advice on how some of the little tricks that he's got going on. David, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me.
No, man, thank you, man. I appreciate you taking the time. I know you're super busy, and we are live, so we will get some comments, some questions probably. I want to read those off in the middle, but I do want to talk about. Well, let's start in the beginning. Let's start in the beginning because I found some stuff, and I think I sent you one, but I'm gonna send you another one here. I found your picture in high school. I thought for some reason that you went to Bristol High School, but you chose. I'm gonna get in the series. Nunawak High School, right?
Nunawak, yes, Nunawak in Woodbury.
Yeah. So, did you grow up in Woodbury, or?
Yeah, I'm a Woodbury guy.
No kidding, man. That's so wild. I didn't know that. I don't know why I had Bristol in my head the whole time. I'm going through Bristol. I'm like, this guy doesn't exist in Bristol prior to, So, 1996, you graduated. Tell me about Nunawak, because I was corrected by my AI assistant.
Nunawak is it's a magnet school for like farming and agriculture and stuff like that. It has all the regular stuff too. I was not one of the VOAG students. I just happened to be where I lived. It was a good school, man. I mean, with the gift of hindsight, every kid is ready to point out the problems with their high school, but with the gift of hindsight, it was a great school.
So there was, and feel free not to talk about this, but something happened during there. I saw an apology in your yearbook description. Do you want to talk about what happened? There's a little teenage angst.
There was, my junior year of high school, I skipped school with 3 friends and drove around and I crashed my car with them in it. And it was a tough time. I didn't come back for the rest of the year.
Holy crap. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I knew there was an incident, but that's wild, bro.
Yeah, I came back for my senior year. And, one of those things, they say like everything happens for a reason. That was one of those things where I could have done without that one. That one was, I'm sure it helped shaped who I am today and all that good stuff. But that would have been a nice thing to not have happen.
Yeah, that must have been something to go through during your teenage years. I see why you would take the rest of the year off. It was insane, bro. I didn't know that. I literally didn't know what happened. So let me ask you this then. Let's switch gears. You were selling gum?
Oh, as a kid, yeah.
What is that about?
Well, so I've learned later, like when you're a kid, when you're my age, our age, right? I'm 46.
Yep.
There was no entrepreneur school. Our parents were traditional. They don't recognize that you're an entrepreneur, but if it is naturally inherent in you, you do things like that. The most common thing that people think of is the lemonade stand. And I would go and buy gum in bulk and I would sell it on my lunch break for 25 cents a pack, which is the same price it cost in the gas station back then. And it came naturally to me to make a few bucks. And I used to make $3 or $4 a day. And again, in hindsight, that is so stupid. It made so little money. It was not worth doing, but I just wanted to do it. And if someone had recognized that, like, hey, that kid's an entrepreneur, he's selling gum in school, that probably would have shortened my journey quite a bit, but I didn't have that. But that's what it was. I just wanted to make a few bucks on the side.
I love the fact that you went into selling gum because I've seen this before. There's a lot of kids in that age range that did the exact same thing where they would sell gum or candy or whatever. And then the teachers would come over and they completely shut them down and like, oh, you can't do that and do one of those things. And I was like, wow, that kid is a hustler though. There's people out. Mark Cuban sold trash bags door to door just as a story. and that shaped who he is. And I mean, look where he lives, where he's at in life. And same thing for you. Although you said it wasn't worth it, I feel like that really kind of like sparked that juice in you and kept you going forward. And even though you might not have known it then, how successful you were going to be now, because you are a very successful person as far as I'm concerned. I think that the value lives with that particular time.
If I had known, right? Because I mean, it wasn't just gum. I would buy and sell and trade collectibles. It started with baseball cards and cards and comic books, all the nerd stuff, And I always ended up on top. I wasn't trading with my friends to be even. I was always trading to gain.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it's negotiation and where to put your money, and do I think this one will go up in value, that kind of thing. Um, I was always side hustling, and I'm sure it's more widespread now. Like if your kid is a entrepreneur in high school today, I'm gonna guess that someone recognizes it and points it out. But back in the
Thankfully.
90s, yeah, back in the 90s, that was not the case. They used to be like, "Oh, you're a bad student. You need some medication or something like that."
That was the case. You're 100% right. And it's funny that you mentioned it because you said collectibles, and I was when I came across that little tidbit about you, my thought process was I was like, oh, he's my age. I bet you we were in the same kind of running because I was also collecting comic books. And one of the things that I used to do a lot was collect signatures.
All right.
And yeah, so I had a few comic books. One of the notables was Mike Zeck.
Okay.
And I had a very obscure comic book that I found of his. It ran, I don't know, maybe 8 issues before it got canceled. It was terrible comic. But I brought it to him and I showed it to him. I said, "You don't mind signing this?" And he says, "Oh, I fucking hated this comic." It was the best experience ever. I was like, "Yeah, I hate it too." But it was the point was I knew it was obscure, and I think that you kind of recognize that too, doing your, different sort of like. Tell
Well,
me about your collectible career because you were doing this before anybody was doing this.
well, when things are collectible, rarity matters, right? Actually, every collectible that we knew as kids has been destroyed by overproducing the product and eliminating the rarity of it. Um, it was all about how fun it was and how rare things were, because a lot of it came with demand. Like these collectibles are, I know there's still a market out there, but it's nothing like when we were young because kids aren't into it these days. Every old collector that passes on or stops collecting, there's not a new collector to replace them, is what it is. And so, magic cards were the big change for us in the 90s because they were interactive. A comic book, you read it and you put it to the side. A baseball card, you can't do anything with them. Magic cards were a game. You would play a game with the cards, and that became super popular. And then the original cards, they were rare and they were valuable, and it was all about trading and buying and selling. And I got to admit, I sold my cards a little too early. I did great, but I could have done 10 times better if I had held them. But such is the gift of having hindsight, right? Um, it makes it was the collectibles these days are very different. It's all about, you have to find a market or something that you like it and other people are still in it. If you like it and you're the only one, there's nobody to trade with. And it's just not, it eliminates the fun of it, a lot of it. Having other people that like the same thing as you is part of the fun of it.
It is. Yep. There was a card game that I used to like to play, and I'm teaching my kids right now how to play that. And it was when I was younger, a little older than I should have probably been anyway. But it was a game called Yu-Gi-Oh, and I like playing that. And then my ex-wife also liked to play that game. We used to play it together, and I wanted to teach my kids. So you're right about that. And of course, some of the cards are valuable. And so my next question is: so did you actually play?
Magic, yeah.
Let's go, bro. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I played for years. I was pretty decent at it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I think that really in that time period is really when collectibles really started kind of, taking off. And just like you mentioned, Magic Gathering is what we're talking about. Anybody who doesn't know, that's what we do. Everybody just calls it Magic. It's much more popular now than it was then. but that just shows kind of who you are because you kind of see these trends prior. And I think that's what helped you negotiate and get that, that better profit on those cars. Um, were there any high school experiences or influences, teachers that sparked your interest in real estate, entrepreneurship, business ownership?
In college, there was one. In high school,
Yep.
I can't say there was anyone that was with me for entrepreneurship that I can recall.
Are we talking about Mitchell?
Mitchell College, yeah.
Yep.
In Mitchell College, I took a business class, and the business class, I forgot his name, and I feel bad, but he was an older gentleman. He had been a successful businessman. He was teaching because he wanted to. He definitely did not have to be there for the job or the money. And he was like, again, he was like super wise and stuff. And he taught me a couple lessons that I remember forever. One of them was using debt as a tool. Growing up in our age, our parents were taught to dislike debt. And so our parents taught us to dislike debt. And this guy liked debt and explained how to use debt regularly. And so from that one lesson in college, if I learned nothing else in college, learning to not be afraid of debt was a life-changing lesson that made it the whole thing worth it for me. And I didn't even graduate. I dropped out, but um, it was using debt as a tool. I mean, no one else had told me that was a thing before. I thought debt was bad. You buy clothes and you owe it on your credit card and you have to pay it back, and that's terrible. That's what I understood debt to be. He was the one guy who understood entrepreneurship, and there was a couple lessons, and that was the main one that I remember.
So
From the beginning.
can you share? So like, okay, so the first thing you said was, hey, don't be afraid of that. Use it as it's a tool. And I kind of I was exactly what you said. I was like, oh no, being in debt was like a mark, like a scarlet letter, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but it was just that. When somebody said, if you're in debt, I'm in a lot of debt. Oh, geez. But that's not the case. And using debt as a tool, can you give a quick tidbit or kind of an explanation how someone would use debt as a tool?
Sure. Actually, I can repeat really quickly like the gist of the lesson that he taught us. So he had us in class, and he says, "All right, class, you're going to borrow $1 million, and the monthly payment on the $1 million is $50,000 every month, and you're going to go invest that in widgets, and the widgets are going to pay you $55,000 a month, so you make a profit of $5,000 a month." And he says, "What do you guys do next?" And so we're a class of dumb kids, and nobody got the answer right, including me. And some kids are like, "Oh, I'm gonna spend the money on fun stuff, or I'm gonna pay down the debt faster, or I'm gonna open a business with the profits or something like that." And then he says at the end, he says, "How many of you would try to borrow a second $1 million and do it twice?" And like none of us had that answer, and I always remembered that. That was the gist of it.
That's a massive that one just at the end there is just like, yeah, just double it up, do it again, just repeat the process. And then there's lessons in between them because I'm sure it's not as simple as that. I mean, there's going to be some fuck ups and there's going to be lessons to be learned in that. Speaking of that, so like all right, so you're out of college now, you left. What was the first thing you did?
Oh, got a job. I did not
I did not
graduate.
expect to hear that. I almost expected you to mean immediately. Oh, I bought this rental and made $1 million.
Oh, no, I didn't know I was an entrepreneur yet because nobody told me. So I got a job at a restaurant. I was a restaurant worker for 3 or 4 years. A good experience overall, but I didn't realize that how much it wasn't for me. But at the time, I was all about making money. I would work all of the hours. I would, bus tables, wait tables, and I enjoyed it at the time. For that time in my life, it served me well. But yeah, no, there was just me side hustling because it felt natural, but I had no idea that I was an entrepreneur. I probably couldn't even spell the word at that point. It was it was definitely not it was not obvious to me until much later actually.
What
I
was
got
your
my first I
go
got
ahead?
my first real business at 27.
That's my next one. So your first business, why did I feel like you bought a house first or a rental property first? That's wrong.
It was about the same time, 27. I think I bought my first house and I got my first business at 27.
So let's talk about the first. Which came first, business or the house?
I think the business came first.
All
The
right,
business came first.
tell me about the business. What was it? I'm super curious. And I don't have that information.
All right, so I'm buying and selling, collectibles and whatnot, and
Okay, okay.
it eventually turns into like computer components and office supplies, and whatever I can get my hands on. And it eventually went to cars. So I was flipping cars at the time. So I'm flipping the cars for like 9 years. 9 years I've been flipping cars a little bit. And I've built up an inventory of 9 cars. And I have no dealer's license. I drive them around with no license plate if I have to drive them somewhere a short distance. Back then, you could do those things. And I'm using a mechanic in Waterbury who rents a bay at this small little hole in the wall shop. And the owner of the dealership was forced to leave. And my mechanic asked me if I wanted to buy the shop with him. And I ended up saying yes. And so I owned a car dealership at 27, and me and the mechanic were partners. And I just by dumb luck and a little bit of common sense, I guess, I structured the partnership really well so that what it was is he did whatever he wanted and kept his own money. I did whatever I wanted and kept my own money, and we split the overhead. And so that way, you can't steal from each other. And we're still friends today. And that was my first business. I was a car dealer, and I had dealer plates and a license, and I could go to the auctions. And man, it was miserable, honestly, in the beginning, but I liked it.
For a second, I was gonna like, I must have felt good to actually get legit, because like when you were running around with no license plates, and let me tell you, I did that as a kid as well. And just like you said, you could do that at the time. Today, there's no shot. If you have a bad plate, that cop is gonna pick you up immediately. But back then you can. So how did it feel when you actually was going from not being legit and always kind of looking over your shoulder to being legit, and hey, this is an actual business?
So I was excited. It was the first time in my life I went into any debt because I needed some debt to buy cars. But one of the problems was it was in like downtown Waterbury, behind the Waterbury Mall, and it was a tough neighborhood. And as a Woodbury kid, I was not prepared for that. The Waterbury clientele and the Waterbury, the crime and the theft and I used to have a car or two stolen every year. Thank God that was way before catalytic converters were as valuable as they
Oh
are.
yeah,
So people weren't stealing those, luckily.
But they were
But
stealing
it
the
was,
rims, though, I have to think.
some of that, yeah, some of that. It was very difficult, and I didn't know what was wrong either. I'm like, why don't these people do what they say they're going to do, like they do in
Yeah,
Waterbury? Why are they stealing instead of like doing what they're supposed to do in Woodbury? Like
yeah,
I didn't
no,
understand.
yeah, it was the same. It was a tough, even in mid-90s was tough. Everybody wanted to be a gangster and a thief.
Yeah, I learned a whole lot real fast in Waterbury in the ghetto.
Yeah, but you did. So you bought your first house at this point. Now, tell me about the house. How that must have felt awesome. So this was a single or a multi?
So the first one was a single. I bought four in very quick succession. I bought a single,
Mm.
a three family, a three family, and a two family, all back to back to back to back. Back then you could do that, all with bank loans, all with zero down. I was excited.
Really, zero down? That was cool.
Yeah, back then you didn't have to put any money down. I even walked away with checks sometimes. I'd go to the closing, sign my name a bunch of times, and I'd get a check at closing. But back then I didn't know what I was doing at all. I was just like, oh, I'm going to be a real estate investor. Okay, I'm going to buy this house. Oh, that was easy. I'll buy another house. Oh, that was easy. I'll buy another house. Oh, that was easy. And I didn't know that this was right before the crash. Thank God I didn't get into it earlier. If I had gotten into it earlier, I would have been much worse off. So all of these, they were not deals. They didn't cash flow. Saying I was an investor would be a strong word. It was more like I was just making mistakes. It was the price of my education. They were all bad deals. Never made a dollar off of those. Um, I wanted to get into it because I saw the real estate market climb, and I'm like, man, I want to do that too. That sounds great, and I was excited about it. But if you've already seen it climb, it's like trying to be an investor today. Of course you can succeed, you can do things, but it's a whole lot harder to get in today than it was 10 years ago. It's way harder. You're at or near a peak. I have to believe that. I'd stand by that all day.
I am with you on that. I think that these prices are crazy. I think it's going to just drop. Like the floor is just going to drop. That's just, and I don't know anything about real estate. It just feels that way.
We're old enough to remember the last crash. This
Mm.
is exactly how it feels. And so if you wake up and you're like, hey, I want to buy a three family to rent out, like you can't cash flow it. You can't go on the MLS, buy a three family and make cash flow today. That's normally in a normal market, you can do that. You can go buy a three family and you can make at least a few $100s a month. And there's lots of guys out there that are like, oh, but I can do it. So if you're listening and you're like, I'm cash flowing, I'm like, wait a minute, what's your vacancy rate? What's your repair rate? Did you forget to put in your capex? Do you have a management rate in there? Oh, I'm managing it myself, and that's fine. I get that, as long as you realize your time is not worth zero, and you're not cash flowing. You're just not. There's nothing. There's nothing out there. Not around here.
So what would you give for a tip then? Should people just kind of hold off? Because when you hold off, I feel like the whole market is stuck. I feel like the government has to, or Fed has to come in and do something to sort of unblock the dam. Should people just wait and see and wait for the crash and then come in and go visit auctions?
So I'm going to say no, because if I had told people to wait when I thought it was better to wait, you would have been waiting for years, right? I thought the market was getting high in 2019. I admit it, I was definitely way early. So I don't want to tell people to wait, but you have to look at so many more deals. You have to work so much harder to find one that makes sense. If you find a place that you want to live in and it suits your needs, you like the house, and you rent out the other 2 units and you live as inexpensively as you can, that's a reasonable thing to do. If you have your house and you like where you live and you want to buy a 3-family for investment purposes, I mean, the real way to get them these days is you have to buy something damaged, buy a house that needs work. You put in sweat equity. Buying and flipping houses, it's harder now, but that's still going on. There's still a bunch of it. Buy a house that needs work. Don't buy something turnkey. You just can't make a dollar on it.
The one of the comments says, "Is it me or is it just frozen?" But it looks to me like I'm running okay. So, Jeffrey, I appreciate that input. I wanted to make sure that we're still good. I am switching back and forth. Well, maybe it's kind of like it's jumpy a little bit on my side, but it seems okay. Thanks for jumping in though, Jeff. I appreciate it. I want to go real quick to the next thought process here, is because now that you have this property, I want to talk about the challenges and the compassions for tenants. You've had some tough ones. I watched that news clip of the tenant completely destroying your thing there. One of your apartments in Bristol, if I'm not mistaken. Tell me about that experience and like how are you like flat? Hey, you don't pay the rent, eviction starts. Are you one of those guys that's sort of like, let me help you, let me work with you? What's your thought process on that?
So I have always been the landlord that will work with you. And that's bit me sometimes, but it's also rewarded me sometimes. And I've always been small enough that I could do that. Um, one of the, I definitely have lots of landlord stories. At my peak, I had 139 apartments, and most of them were C class. So C class is the least predictable like sector of real estate investment, right? D class, you know what you're getting. You know that the tenants are going to be difficult. You know that you're going to have damage and complaints and evictions, right? B class, you expect it to be pretty darn good, and they usually are. And A class is like, the least headaches, but you don't get to make any money in A class unless you're the developer. So in C class, you don't know what you're getting. You're going to get some good people and you're going to get some bad people. And of course, I don't understand this back at the time, but C class is the best place to be for an investor. I am not up for the headache and the sacrifice of my personal life that D class requires. I like money, so I can't invest in A class. And B class is also okay, but C class is more profitable, and it's the way to go in my opinion. So um, when I didn't have anyone to train me in the beginning, like today, I'm actually envious of anyone starting out being a landlord today. There is so much information available to you and so many people willing to answer your questions. And I didn't have that when I started. And so, how to screen a tenant, like I didn't know. No one said, hey, this is how you screen a tenant. This is how you tell if they've had an eviction. This is how you check their criminal record or their credit. I didn't know these things, right? So I'm learning, and again, quickly as I go. But there was a steep learning curve. CT RIA is actually the first place that someone introduced me to, where I'm like, oh my God, there's other landlords that I can talk to. I didn't know that was a thing. Nobody told me. It seems so stupid, but there's always a group of people that do what you want to do. And if you decide you want to go down a certain path, find those people. There's a Facebook group for it. Find them and you can talk to them. So CT RIA, I had 6 properties with almost 20 units before I learned about CT RIA. And so, I was managing very poorly to the best of my ability as far as I could, but
But it's
very
not.
poorly.
But and then you didn't know that until you kind of like started networking a little, right?
Yeah, networking and talking to people, and people are like, hey, did you check to see if you had an eviction? I'm like, oh, how do you do that? It was like that uh inexperienced of me. So that guy Tony absolutely would have failed a screening because he was a felon,
Mm-hmm.
and but he was working for
And this is the
Sierra.
guy that just to give a context, this guy completely destroyed it. He would took advantage of the COVID period. He didn't pay rent for months and months on end. Um, it was illegal for Dave to evict him. So at the time he finally got evicted, he completely threw red paint everywhere, busted everything else, spray painted, all that kind of stuff, really destroyed the apartment. So Tony,
So yeah, Tony. So Tony worked for my painter. And so my painter's like, hey, he's a good worker. Can you give him a chance? Can you put him in an apartment? So I took him because of that. Otherwise, he would have failed the screening. People that have a bad screening or a bad background, I mean, unless you know someone, networking is probably the only way you're getting an apartment. And so if you, this incident, because it happened during the virus, at least locally in Connecticut, Tony and I became like the face of the eviction moratorium. And so if you Google me and if you put in like David Haberfeld, like landlord or eviction or something like that, I was on the news like 15 times. It was, I made a viral post. It's the only truly viral post I've ever made. Millions of people saw it. You can probably still find it. I have it saved. It was because he was my Facebook friend. So when he did that, I made a long post about it and I tagged him in it so that his people could see it. And he engaged with me back and forth for 8 hours before he finally blocked me. And if you have like 25 minutes, it's comedy gold. It is totally worth it. The comments, all of it. So
I didn't
this
come
guy,
across that. I did come across the video though. The video was
I'll,
insane.
I'll send you the post. I'll send you the post, Glenn.
Please,
You
yeah,
gotta you gotta check it out.
I would love to see that.
When you're laying in bed, you got to go through all the comments. They're amazing. So this guy, he's not paying rent. We have an argument over him fixing cars. He is fixing cars in the driveway. And now, believe me, of all people, I can appreciate the side hustle. But this is a 5-unit building with 5 parking spaces. There's no room for him to bring in another car and fix it in the driveway. And we tell him he's got to move it. Tell him he's got to move it. I'm like super nice to this guy. And he doesn't move it. And like months later, and lots of complaints, I finally tow his car. And to him, you would think that like I killed
Took
his family.
took his firstborn or something. He probably took it
Yeah.
super
So
personal.
So he's super mad, stops paying rent. I give it like a couple more months, and I'm like, listen, man, you're not giving me any choice. You're going to make me evict you. Or is that what you really want? And so I file eviction, and the eviction process in Connecticut at that time took like, 45 to 60 days if he's not fighting back effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And so during that time, the virus came and the eviction moratorium came.
And then that
And
was
so
that.
he ended up staying there for 18 months for free. And when it was time for him to go, living for free for 18 months was not enough for him. He was still super mad at me to the point where he destroyed the apartment. Like everything was destroyed. And the red paint and rice mad, the way this came up, he was a painter. So he knew that red is the hardest color to paint over. And then he mixed rice in the bucket of paint because
Wow.
he knew that I would have to sand the walls first before I could paint over it. That's
So
because he
this
was a
is
painter. He
and
knew.
so there's no recourse for you either at this point. Like, what are you gonna do? Sue him? He doesn't have anything to sue for anyway,
Yeah,
right?
he has nothing. He's a drain on society. He has nothing at all. So red paint and rice mad. I'm actually in the Urban Dictionary. I'm the only guy I know in the Urban Dictionary
Wait,
for
what?
red paint rice mad. Yeah,
No, really?
yeah. Check me
Oh
out. I'm in the
God,
Urban
that I gotta
Dictionary.
find. I didn't find,
My
bro.
my daughter says it's a big flex to be in the Urban Dictionary.
It is a massive flex, my dude. But
So
but
my
then
friend,
again, now everybody has that recipe now to you know.
yeah, I know. Hey, well, the people listening to this podcast are never going to be a Tony, right?
No, I don't
So
think so. No. That's a Business is one of the greatest groups I've ever joined. Your contribution, Brian's contribution, Neil, et cetera. Everybody's contribution. Craig has been a big influence with me. But yeah, you're 100% right. The group is great, and also, that is the craziest thing I've ever heard. I'm just like contemplating it in my head. I'm like, wow, dude.
so
Um,
in the comments, my friend Alicia, she goes, "Oh my God, that's crazy. How mad are you? I'm red paint and rice mad," and that actually stuck. There's like you can buy mugs with that on it. Like it's stuck.
I feel like you should have trademarked it.
I probably could have. I didn't know how that worked. You're probably right.
Everybody have to pay you a nickel every time they use it. They gotta get a nickel. It'd be passive income. Um, Besides that, that seems like one of the worst. What was the most heartbreaking one? That you were sort of forced in an eviction or in some kind of like, what was the most heartbreaking tenant that you had that you really sort of went above and beyond for? Like, 'cause that's the worst tenant. I want to know the best tenant.
The best tenants. So I've had a lot of great tenants. I've had a lot of success stories. People that I have one or two. I have one that I evicted her 3 times. So when you evict someone, they have it's called a stipulated agreement. So they can have an eviction on their record, but they stay in the property if they stick to a payment plan.
Mhm.
And so by the skin of her teeth, she made it. And I evicted her 3 times, 3 evictions on her record. And she eventually got her act together, and she owns a home now. She's a homeowner.
Ah,
And
that's awesome.
there was another couple that was on the Section 8 waiting list, because Section 8 is never there when you need it because it's a terrible program. Section 8 waiting list. And so she was a great tenant. And when Section 8, when her turn came up, she was ready for Section 8. And so Section 8 comes out and they're like, "Hey, you have chipping paint on the exterior of your house." And I have a painted house, and it's big. And it was like $8,000 to paint the house. And I'm like, "I'm really sorry, I can't paint the house for you. There's nothing wrong with the paint. It wasn't lead paint. It was fine. But I'm not painting the house so that you can have Section 8." And she made the choice. She's like, "You know what? I'm doing well enough. I'm working. My boyfriend's working. I'm going to give up my Section 8, and I want to stay here because I like it here." And she stayed in my house, and she didn't move for Section 8. So I was super proud of her. Anyone who gets Section 8, they think it's a prize, but it's actually a trap, because you will not try to achieve or better your life. Because if you try to achieve or better your life, they take away the free money. It's a welfare trap. And so I was super proud of her and her boyfriend for that one.
That's
Um,
amazing. That is exactly the success story that you like to hear. And I love the fact that you got with her and you helped her out with that.
I
That's
got
really, really good to hear. Um,
I got I got one more good one, actually. One
okay, hit
more.
me, hit me.
All right. So I had a girl who came in for an apartment, and she seemed very nice and very normal, and clean record. I was screening her, and she told me when I was showing her the apartment that she was in recovery. She was a heroin addict, and she had been clean for like a year. And I they relapse so often that I usually turn them down, almost always. And I took a chance on her because I wouldn't have known if she didn't tell me. And she just like, I had a good feeling about her. And she ended up she stayed clean all this time. She ended up meeting a guy, and they're married, and they have kids, and they own a home, and like a complete recovery success story. And I narrowly gave her a chance, narrowly, because of the statistics say they're probably going to relapse, and they're probably not going to pay their rent, and they're probably going to give you a headache. And just using gut feel, I was right on that one, and she did a great job.
So taking those stories, and I mean, like, I feel like there's more positive than there is negative, because Tony was crazy, and I'm sure you had some minor ones, and I'm sure you had some evictions you didn't want to evict, but you had no choice. And then you have these great positive stories. How does that influence your decision on who's going to be renting your place?
I mean, it's about experience and about risk tolerance. So by now, I would consider myself a very experienced landlord. So when someone comes into me, I recognize the red flags right away. I can sniff a crackhead from like 20 yards. Um, I'm probably going to make a pretty good call. I'm probably going to have a very high success rate. And it's five. I call them the 5%. So the 5% are the ones that make the terrible stories, but they're the ones that are entertaining for everybody. If I say Johnny and Susie paid their rent on time and took their garbage out on garbage day, like that's not a story anybody wants to hear.
Yeah,
But
it's
that's
no fun.
90.
But
That's
it's probably one
90% of
of,
the tenants.
yeah,
So
that's a right, that's
that's
a
almost
good
all of
one.
them.
Yeah. So
You know.
tell me that, what are the flags? Like, so we have some people that are watching. They're saying, "Hey, maybe I want to get into this." What's your top 3 or top 5 red flags, whichever you think, to get a person to disqualify a person immediately or look into further?
Oh, incoming. Okay, incoming tenant red flags. All right. I mean, so eviction is number one. So evictions prior to 2020 have a little less weight than after 2020. If you had an eviction during the eviction moratorium or after, that means you screwed your landlord for a really long time. I don't know any landlord that will take someone who has an eviction from 2020 or beyond, and most of them won't take them at all anymore. The government has made evictions so serious that now we can no longer ignore it. Um, Under criminal history, it's a lot of mostly the drugs. If you have drugs, a drug charge, there's only two reasons to have it. And so I asked them. I actually asked the tenant, were you selling drugs or were you using drugs? And they're usually surprised I asked. And I'm like, well, there's only two reasons to have drugs, right? You weren't holding them for a friend. I'm not the cops. You don't have to lie to me like that. And they answer. They tell me they want the apartment, and they're like, I was selling drugs and I got in trouble, and I'll never do it again. I'm working a job. Like, that's actually, depending on what they say, can be a forgivable offense. I believe in second chances, but drugs is another one that's always tough. Another one is if they have a consistent credit issue. So if you have some issues on your credit, so does everybody else. It's very common. But if you owe everyone, if you have, all your utilities have been unpaid, all your cell phone bills have been unpaid, your car has been repossessed, and you're just not good with money, it doesn't make you a bad person, but it does make you a bad tenant. Very likely, the odds of you paying your rent and having your fiscal house in order are almost zero. Number four, I'm going to go with trashing the other landlords. So if you're like, I'm moving out because my landlord's a slumlord, he doesn't fix anything, that's usually a red flag. There's always another side of the story. It doesn't mean you're wrong, but you're probably having some kind of conflict where it's probably not all your landlord's fault, and you're probably going to bring those problems to me. It is a very high accuracy rate for those people causing problems. And number five, you're going to laugh. This is only for New England. If they say have a blessed day, if they have a blessed day, it's taken us years, but landlords, one day we figured out it's like a code word among people that aren't going to pay you rent. We don't know how this happened, but we figured out that the people that say have a blessed day get evicted at a much higher clip. And in the South, it means something different. So in the South, it's not affected because the people in the South always correct me. But in the North, when they say have a blessed day, you're like, crap, I can't rent to you. The odds of me evicting you are statistically high. And it sounds so silly, but have a blessed day is a red flag.
Who tracks that? How do you track that? Like, who
It
came
took us
up with
years.
that?
So I actually like had this feeling about it. It would give me a bad feeling when they said it, but I'm like, that's stupid, David. You're just being paranoid or something like that. But then, like, in a Facebook chat, someone finally posted it. Someone said, these guys, they always said have a blessed day. I'd evict them again. It's like the second one in a row. And other landlords started chiming in, and we've all had the same experience. We were all able to figure out that the people that say have a blessed day, they don't pay their rent. And we don't know why. We can't explain this one with
That
science.
is the weirdest thing.
It's the weirdest thing. But it's a thing. It is. I mean, obviously, it's a stereotype. Stereotypes are never 100% accurate, but they're always mostly accurate. And it's landlords connected the dots after years and years, and so all it took was one guy to Facebook post complaining because like two tenants in a row that said have a blessed day got evicted, and everybody chimed in, and it was way too common. The
Yeah,
feedback was way too overwhelming for it not to be a thing.
that
It
is
is
so wild.
some kind of statistical anomaly, and I'm sure no one even says, they don't mean anything bad when they're saying have a blessed day. Hopefully means have a good day, have
Have
a
a good
blessed
day.
day,
That's
right?
what I would think it
But
must be.
among New England tenants, it is a red flag.
That is wild. All right, I want to pivot. You got into the sub business, the grinder business.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I remember when that was launched, and I said, "Oh, that sounds cool. I got to go try that." But before I got a chance to try it, that place was gone. What happened?
So Firehouse Subs is a popular chain more down south, and there was two of them in Connecticut. And so the owner of the two mismanaged them, lost them both. One of them was financed by Firehouse Subs corporate in Florida, and so they owned it and they were holding it. The manager there, who lost his job when they closed, like everybody else, um, through a mutual friend, he came to me, and the mutual friend and him were like, "Hey, David, we can reopen this place, and would you be interested?" And my guy was actually my landscaper, the mutual friend, and he's like, "You want to own a sub shop with us?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." And he's like, "Oh, he was so disappointed. He thought for sure I'd be so excited." I'm like, "Restaurant industry is terrible. I want nothing to do with it." And so he's like, well, you're a really smart business guy. Could I come and talk to you? Could we come and sit with you? And I said, absolutely. I'll definitely give you some time. And so he came in. And so they actually did have a deal. And what it was is that that place costs like, it was like, if I remember the numbers, 360,000 to build it out. And they're renting, they don't own the property. And he could get it from Firehouse Corporate. Corporate just wants the place active and running. They want their royalties. They were willing to give it to him for 60,000, all built out. And I'm like, wow, that's actually a really good deal. And so I did get into it. So we have a three-way partnership, and the former manager is the one running it. And I didn't know him super well. I am very close with my landscaper, and the guy was stealing from day one, and
Ugh.
he ran it into the ground. And so the way that I know that he was stealing from day one is because anyone in business, especially like retail, you know that the easiest money to steal is sales tax, and the worst money to steal is sales tax. So he was stealing sales tax from day one. He never made a payment in 18 months. And the IRS finally tracked me down and called me. And that's how I figured out there was a problem. And so I have a full-time bookkeeper in my office, and we go through the reports every month. And the place was doing shitty, but I didn't know for sure he was stealing. I just knew it was a bad investment. I knew I was going to lose on it. But I'm like, Amanda, how did this get past us? How did he steal the sales tax? And Amanda says, David, look at these reports from the very beginning. Sales tax in, sales tax out. He was doctoring the reports from day one. And Amanda said, I'm sorry, David, I didn't think I had to verify that he
Oh,
actually made the payments. He didn't actually make the payments. He just said he did by doctoring the reports from the very first month.
no.
And, and that's how that one went. That's how that one sank.
That's yeah. That and then let me tell you, there's no nobody has a bigger gun to sink a business than the government.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
that's exactly what happened. So, so that must have been horrible because not only that, I mean, you're a smart guy. I have to think you probably insulated the rest of your businesses from that.
Yeah, actually, not only did I insulated that business. So when you're leasing a property, a commercial lease, they want a personal guarantee. They want you to sign the lease unless you are 20% or less ownership of the business. And the same with sales tax. You are not responsible for sales tax if you are less than 20% and don't have management control. And so I knew enough to do both of those things. So I didn't, and also Firehouse Subs, you had to sign a contract with them, a franchise agreement. If you're less than 20%, um, they wanted a personal guarantee. And so I knew enough to not personally guarantee anything. So I was limited to what I invested. And so when the place went under, they didn't come after me for the rent, for the franchise agreement, or for sales tax.
Smart.
And at least I was smart enough to do that.
Yeah.
Um,
I bet you're very happy that you did that after everything.
Yeah, and so you can just so people listening, you can be a 19% owner of a business, but have a larger percentage profit share. So I think I had a 35% profit share and a 19% ownership stake, and you can do that because I actually put up 100% of the money to buy the stuff. I had a UCC lien on all the equipment, so when we closed, I sent over a crew and I took everything out of the place, and I was able to sell it to recoup some of the money.
Nice, bro. Tactful, strategic. That
You
was good,
you
man. I'm
you
so
you
impressed to
got
hear
to
that.
you got to protect yourself to the best of your ability. It was still a loser, but I mean, I recouped some losses with some sandwiches. The sandwiches were pretty good, but
I really wanted to try it. I was very sad to see it go. I wanted to
uh,
know. I mean, because I hate Subway. So and Subway, that's another. Ugh, that's a terrible business. Anyway,
it
moving
is.
on. Now, tell me about Landlord Solutions. Is that your business? I just want to be sure first before we talk
It
about
is, yeah. Landlord Solutions. I made it as a property management business in 2012 because I wanted to buy a big apartment building. So many people like me, we have a dream to buy these big apartment buildings, and I went to buy one and I couldn't get it. It was 2012. Things were cheap, so it wasn't it was worth it all day. It was the financing. The banks weren't lending well. And I decided that the second best thing, if I couldn't own it, was to manage it, and I'll figure out how to own it later. And that's exactly what happened. So I made a property management company. I managed this building for the owner, and then eventually the owner sold it to me.
and then here you are today. Now, we're coming on the top of the hour here, and I know you are we have a hard stop at 9. I want to talk about before we go, a little bit about Serenity Woods because that place is magnificent. I feel like that's the crown jewel and the reward for every sacrifice, the ups, the downs, from dropping out of college to car dealerships to getting stolen from Firehouse Subs. I feel like Serenity Woods is the crown jewel.
It's my favorite toy. That's what I tell people. So I got into the short-term rental business in the late 2019. I got into it because one of my teachers, my mentors, Robin Thompson, got into it, and she was just all in on it. And when I started looking into it in like 2017, it seemed once you look into it, it's just like you buy a red Audi, and then you see them all on the street. Everyone has a red Audi, and so I just seemed saturated to me. I thought everyone was doing it, but I was obviously, there was plenty of room left. So I got into the game next to Mohegan Sun with my first one. I have 11 now. And one of them is this cool log cabin in New Hartford called Serenity Woods. It's 7,000 square feet. It's in the middle of the forest on 62 acres. It's an excellent retreat. I have parties and events and all that kind of stuff. It's one of the few places that you can do that because I allow it. So parties and events and more than 16 guests is prohibited worldwide by Airbnb and VRBO, because they figured out all their problems come from those things. So I can direct book because this property is well suited to it. I stay there when I can. It's booked really heavy in the summer. In the off season, it's still booked enough to get by. It's a really cool thing, and I love opening it up. I open it up a few times a year for free, just for people to come and see it. I give it up to dads in business for some meetings, a few times a year. If I have a friend doing something really cool, I have the ability to offer it up. It's been an amazing thing to own, and I'm glad I bought that one.
I think that a lot of dads in business are also glad you bought that one.
I think they are.
You did a bourbon tasting recently, I think, over there, didn't you?
Yeah. Dylan Walker, at a dads in business event, Brian asked me to offer up a weeknight at Serenity Woods as a raffle prize, and so I did. And Dylan Walker won it. And this is like a year ago. He took like a year to use it, but he used it for his nonprofit, and so he did a bourbon tasting, and it was great. They had like 50 people there. It was really nice, and I went up there. I bought a ticket to my own event, and it was fun. And I actually spent the night, and I timed it well. So I get one of the things I get to time things well. So I stayed the night there, and then I woke up, and then I taught advanced tax avoidance class at the very next day. And it was these kind of events they're great there. They're great. They're so much fun. It's such a good environment. Everyone is like so impressed with the property and stuff. It's one of the few places that looks as good or better when you see it in person.
This is I know you can see but this is the bourbon taste, if I'm not mistaken, right?
It is not. It is not. That is Brian put that picture up, but that is a restaurant somewhere. That is not my place. That
Oh,
place
for
looks
some
nice.
reason I thought that was your place. All right, let me get a picture, because I do have a picture, because this place is amazing.
Yeah, if you
Let
are
me bring
there,
this
that's
up.
it.
Yeah, this is absolutely incredible.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's my place.
look at these. This is the inside here.
Yeah, we go all out for Christmas. We decorate for Christmas. We leave the Christmas decorations up for 3 months. It's a 4-bedroom, 4-bathroom. It sleeps a max of 22. Has a game room and a pool and a hot tub.
Let me see if I find that game. Look, are you serious with this?
Yeah, it came with a home gym. That came with the house.
That came with the house?
Yeah.
Oh, here's your game room. Oh, love the arcades. Let's go. Is that Galaga?
Yeah.
What is that, Galaga?
I got Pac-Man. I have Mortal Kombat 2, and I have Big Buck Hunter.
So don't even start with Mortal Kombat 2. I will fuck you up. You smoke, and I will cheese the fuck out of you. Look at this. This is amazing. Outdoor bar. Let's go.
Yes, the tiki bar is very functional. Like you can bring in a bunch of coolers, and you can serve out of there if you like.
Oops. Here it is.
I had to set it up.
Yeah,
the tiki bar. Yeah, I had to set up the laundry and the dishwashing because my crew has to be able to turn it over in 4 hours.
Oh,
In the beginning, I didn't think I could do a same-day turnover because I was worried about the capacity of the cleaners. Right, it's about laundry and it's about dishes, and so I was able to put in a dual dishwasher system and a dual high-speed washer dryer, and we can turn it over in 4 hours.
dude, that's awesome, because hotels can't do that, by the way. Well, some of them can, but whatever.
They can do a room, but they can't do a 7,000 square foot house.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. This is like, if to turn that over in 4 hours, it's absolutely insane. But that is dude, that's awesome. I am very guilty. I have not been up there yet. and I'm mad
Yeah.
about it, and I regret it, and I should have went up. But you know, when the dads were up there using it in the beginning, I was still kind of, this is a year and a half ago when I had the opportunity, and I still like sort of like I was like a little insecure, not really quite there yet. All right, hey man, dude, this was an awesome conversation. This is the one of this is gonna go down as one of the more fun podcasts. Learning about you was crazy. This is a lot of stuff.
Dad's in Business has an event coming up at Serenity Woods. I don't think Brian announced it yet, but he did have us save the date. I'm trying to remember
Uh-oh,
where
got an exclusive.
it is. I don't remember.
Is it the December thing? The
It is in December. Yeah.
Yeah, I did see. Yeah, that's right. I did see that in the admin chat.
Okay. Did he? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So if you happen to
Yeah.
have
So
it,
look. Yeah,
share it
Brian's
with
gonna
the
get on
listeners.
that. I'm sure he's watching. He's thinking about it. He's like, oh shoot, I probably should get on that because we're close to. We're close. We gotta get good. We gotta.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's December 13th or something like that. I thought
Tell
last night.
people to save that date.
Yeah, for sure. We're gonna be there, Serenity Woods, and I think this is a mastermind too, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep. Yep.
Which has me nervous because I don't consider myself a mastermind.
Don't worry. You don't have to be a mastermind to be at a mastermind. It's I gotta tell you one of the other tips actually for anyone out there. Like, I didn't know what a coach did, and I didn't know what a mastermind was until I'm in my 7th year now. And prior to that, and I just kind of like stumbled into this room. But my only regret about coaching and mastermind was not doing it earlier. It has been such a benefit to my life. I definitely recommend that everyone find a coach, dabble in it, interview, join a mastermind. Um, there's a million of them out there. You do have to look for them and try one out. It made a big difference in my life.
I feel like a broken record, but the only coach I've ever had an interaction with was Neil Conlon, and he did he literally in like a minute snap me straight out of my mindset. And can you want to shout out some of your coaches?
Yeah, my coach is Sean McCloskey. He's in St. Louis. His mastermind is called Leadership Boardroom. And then I would consider Robin Thompson a coach. I never signed up for a coaching program, but she's been a real estate teacher and mentor for me for about 10, 11 years now. But yeah, if you there's a lot of different levels to it too. You have to, if you are not super far along in your journey, don't seek out the top level coach like right away. Like you can jump from coach to coach. A coach will not be upset when you decide that you have reached the maximum benefit that you can get from them and it's time to move on to someone else. A good coach is fine with that. Every coach will have a different style. Every coach will pick up on different things and help you in different ways and has different life experiences to share with you. And also don't be afraid of life coaching. So Sean's Leadership Boardroom, they described it as business coaching, because if you told me it was mostly life coaching, I would have told you I don't need a life coach because that would mean like something's wrong with my life, right? I want business because I want increased income, revenue. I want money. I want return. So Leadership Boardroom, in my opinion, is about, I'd say 60% life coaching and 40% business. And I needed that much more than I knew. But if you tried to sell it to me as 60% life coaching, I would not have signed up. So don't be afraid of life coaching.
Okay, real quick before we go, top 3 YouTube podcasts or etc. for you that you watch on a daily basis.
Oh, I don't watch them. I don't watch anything. I know.
That sounds very odd.
I know. You know what it is? My ADD is pretty high, and I can't focus on stuff. So like I know this will sound crazy. I don't read any books.
I have a tip.
Yep.
I have a tip for especially for YouTube videos. Everybody out there, play it at 2 times speed.
Oh, okay.
You adjust the speed 2 times, or what you could tolerate. You could do 1.5, 1.75, and two times speed. I do 2 times speed because just like you, I don't want to sit there for 30 minutes watching a video to get 10% of the value. So I cut all those in half. So you increase the speed to your tolerance where you can understand, because some people they just talk really slow and they just go on and on. And you're just like, guy, just get to the fucking point. And, so you just increase the speed a little bit to match his voice, and then it's like da 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 da. Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, that's a great tip. Oh, okay, next video. You know what I mean? And micro learning is the other thing that I do in the morning when I'm drinking coffee.
That is a great tip. So yeah, it'll surprise most people that I don't read any books and I don't watch any podcasts, And it's not, I want to know what's in them. I know there's valuable information in them that is valuable to me that I wish I knew, but I can't get through them easily. And so because it's not fun and pleasant
too.
for me, I don't do it.
Yep, me too. And then like I said, you try that to increase weight. It still may not work for you, but it worked for me because I had the same issue. I don't want to sit there and waste my time hearing about your fucking whatever else. I want to know what we're talking about. I want to get right into it immediately. Let me make sure my voice is on here because I just touched my mic. Yes, it is. It's working good. David, thank you so much for taking the time out on Monday. I know this is hard because this is the exact time you have your personal training, which again, by the way, everybody should be into. Definitely taking care of your health. But thank you so much for being on the cast day. This was an amazing conversation.
It was a pleasure. This was fun. Glenn, I could tell you do this a bit. I could tell you're good at this, man.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. I don't think I am, but I people say that, but I don't know. Maybe sometimes I don't believe, but we will see you the next time I think we're going to meet is I'm going to go for the Serenity Woods in December. So hopefully, because the last time, unless you're going to Happy's this Thursday, by the way, $35, food, drink, the whole thing, non-alcoholic drinks, but still. And 2 hours, I think 2 or 3 hours of golf lessons. So if you haven't done that, are you going to be there?
I am not. I promised I promised a Mohegan concert to my service writer at my shop and his lady.
Well,
so I'm going down there to let him.
There it is. Yep. No, it is what it is. So then the next time I'll see you is in December then at Serenity Woods. I'm super happy and excited to be going there.
Sounds great. I'll see you there, man.
Thanks again, man. We'll talk to you.
Talk to you later.
Oops. I always hit that wrong button. I don't know why I do. Hey guys, thanks for watching the comments and I appreciate it. Jeffrey, I did look into it and it looks like I'm in good shape with the freezing, hopefully, fingers crossed, because I do have to record this later. But thanks again for watching, guys. Happy Monday. Thank you to all the veterans out there for their service, their sacrifices, and everything they do for our freedoms today. I think that it is one of the most important things that we should recognize as our servicemen. They get paid very little. They lose a lot of time with their family, and today is definitely the day to thank him for that. And I thank you for watching. We will see you next Monday. If I'm not mistaken, it is the last episode. So let's make that a good one. We're gonna go through some clips and see some other things that that have happened, and we're gonna make fun of me because I messed up on the first couple episodes. But then again, have a great week. Get the wins. Take the value from the podcast. David has imparted some massive wisdom, and for sure consume it. Thanks again. We'll see you next Monday.